Well, hello everybody, my name's Louise Savage. Welcome to my channel, Louise Savage Muses. I wanted to muse today about the Women's Prize for Fiction because the long list? No! The final announcement of the winner is happening on Wednesday night next week. I had to think about it then. And I am really excited and extremely privileged to be able to go down there and be at the awards ceremony. I feel very lucky. And I wanted to really just reflect on the prize and on why it is that I feel such a loyalty towards it, and think that it's such an important aspect of the promotion of women and the levelling, you know, the equality issues between male and female. So one of the things about the prize, of course, is that it promotes original and outstanding work by women, and it does not discriminate between those women. They can be any age, they can have any racial background, they could come from a place of wealth, they could come from a place of poverty, and I genuinely do feel that the prize does encompass that. If you know, the long lists and the short lists reflect that every year. The other thing about the prize, I suppose, is that I grew up an absolutely avid reader, and I think instinctively as a child sort of sought some kind of security in understanding the world from the female perspective that I was growing up in. So I'd gravitate towards, you know, books like Anne of Green Gables, you know, where she's quite naughty and she's coming to terms with herself. I loved things like the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. I think I've spoken about those before on my vlog. Things like Anya Seton, and looking at, you know, women in history and their historical plights. But it was a very white kind of very often sort of conventional viewpoint of the world, or very Eurocentric or Western at the least, because of course, a lot of those authors that I liked reading were American or Canadian. And there's nothing wrong with that in itself. But I feel as though, you know, I'm quite envious of the children who are growing up now, who will be, you know, reading books from all sorts of places, times, you know, and have a kind of more global, I mean, you know, our existence is more global nowadays, and have a more global kind of perspective on literature as they grow up, hopefully. And I think, you know, as I sort of moved towards adulthood, it kind of became harder almost to find women's literature that it wouldn't land in my lap as easily. You almost had to sort of seek it out. And again, I think I was very lucky that you know, I managed to go to university and I was surrounded by friends who read. And very often books were kind of pushed my way through friendships rather than necessarily than through promotion in bookshops, etc. So, you know, things like Maya Angelou's writing, for example, I don't know whether I would have come across her if it hadn't been recommended to me by a friend. So, you know, I for those reasons, those are kind of my personal reasons why I feel that the Women's Prize is so important. And it's an absolute joy to me that every time I walk into a bookshop now, not only are there many varied female writers displayed on the shelves, but it seems to me now that the tables have almost turned, and that we might be, I don't know, maybe I'm fooling myself, but we might be getting to a stage where, you know, fiction by females is sort of outweighing fiction by males. Morning everybody. I think I had my thumb in the way then. As you can see, I'm a total novice at this game. I don't even know whether I'm looking at you or not looking at you. But Savage Reads, the monster that is, has challenged me to make a vlog of the next few days of my life, because it's very exciting. This is my first Tuesday off because I've just gone part-time, so I won't be working Tuesday, so that feels like something really, really wow. But even more wow than that, I'm just getting ready for the best part of the year, which is going down to London to be present at the Women's Prize Awards ceremony. I absolutely can't wait to see who's going to win. So my journey starts here in sunny Shropshire. It's going to be a gorgeous day. I'm really kind of worried about what's behind me, because I'm leaving behind all these joyous blooms, which, you know, I don't think anybody else is going to water while I'm away. But hey, I'm sure they'll thrive somehow. Even my sunflower's looking droopy. Even my sunflower is not coping with this weather. Anyway, I'm off. I'm going to go and get in the car and drive to the train station. Yay! Now, another reason why I absolutely love the prize is because it introduces me to work that, again, might pass me by. You know, it's difficult, isn't there? There are so many books out there, so many things to read. This room is full of books still to be read, which again is a joyous position to be in. So I just thought I'd kind of reflect on a few of the novels that I've come across through the Women's Prize in the last few years, because it's only sometimes with the test of time that you can tell whether a book has kind of stuck with you. So I've deliberately not chosen the winners. I've deliberately picked four, I think it is four or possibly five books that I know really, really, for me, encapsulate that idea of originality and outstanding fiction. So the first one is a book called Remembered by Yvonne Battle-Felton. And I genuinely don't think I would have picked this up. I think it would have passed me by. And I am so glad that I read this book. And the reason that it's lingered with me, it's a kind of it's a story about a mother whose son is dying in hospital, basically, which I know sounds really bleak. I think it's about 1910. It's set in America. And her son's dying, and there's some sort of confusion about whether he's kind of caused his own death or whether it was an accident. He drove a car into some building. I can't remember whether it was a supermarket or something like that. And as he's dying, she finds herself becoming very aware that she's in the same hospital that her sister died in. And obviously it brings back lots of memories. And so she decides to tell her son the story of his origins. And it's that part of the novel that will never leave me, because it's a story about slaves being freed. So this is a time in America when finally the insanity of slavery came to an end, and these slaves were released from service. But where would they go? What would you do? They had nothing. And I was really shocked that I'd never thought about that before. You know, and that to me is what originality is all about. It's not just the telling of the story, but also it's the concepts and the ideas. And, you know, it chimes with what I was saying earlier, that, you know, as a white European middle-class woman, I feel a certain amount of shame that I've not ever considered that before. But then equally, why would I have? Because it's you know, so beyond my experience. It's the other side of the world. And I know that, you know, being British, I'm very well aware of the sort of associated guilt, and rightly so, with the slave trade, etc., etc. But it's novels like this that raise our awareness of not just the sort of horrors of slavery itself, but just how horrific the aftermath was. And I think she does that absolutely brilliant. And, you know, I thank her because I'm really grateful that perspective has been brought to my attention. Well, I've made it to the big city. You can probably hear the roar of traffic in the background, very different to Shropshire. I can't believe I'm actually, I don't know if you can see that, walking past the British Museum. This is unheard of. I don't think I've ever walked past it without going inside. So that all seems a little bit crazy. It just shows how important the Women's Prize is, because I'm off to see Bernardine Evaristo in conversation with Pandora Sykes shortly, and I really don't want to be late. So I'm trying to step out in the sunshine. So here I am in Bedford Square. Very, very, very exciting. I'm going to flip the camera because I want you to be able to see the beautiful lights and the trees. Very, very different choice. I didn't realise how much this novel had stayed with me. So this is Swan Song by Kelleigh Greenberg-Jephcott. And again, it was a long listed novel. I think it was one that I wanted to go on the shortlist but didn't make it. I think I could be wrong about that. It's a few years ago now. And the reason I loved this was because it's written in this kind of well, you feel like you're inside the world of the old sort of movies, you know, the days when people like Audrey Hepburn and all those amazing, perhaps a bit earlier than that actually, all those stunning Hollywood actresses, as they were known at the time, were in the media and the glamour. But it tells the story of Truman Capote and his relationships with 7 of these women, either women who were actresses themselves, you know, on the big screen, or, you know, wives of famous American males, etc., etc. So, and I hadn't realised Capote had befriended a lot of these women, and the story is told from the perspectives of each of these women and the interplay between them, and the attraction that Capote held for them, and the way that he kind of manipulated their stories, I found absolutely fascinating. And it sort of raises all those questions about truth, because he, you know, he seems to have certainly deviated from it on many occasions, but nevertheless, when you read a piece of writing like this, there is a truth, I suspect, in the way that it reflects the time and the kind of tone and scope of those relationships. And I thought it was really original, because it's almost not fiction. I think a lot of it is really carefully researched, and another aspect of it that I loved, and I love books that do this, is that it sent me down a wormhole of inquiry. I went off after reading this and read In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which I'd never read before, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. And, you know, I'm so glad that I was introduced to those books. And his character, I mean, his life, his character, his flawed relationships are really, really fascinating. So yeah, that's a book that really, really stayed with me.
And a fabulous guest. If you would like to share the event online, please use the hashtag Women's Prize.
Well, I've just emerged from my fantastic afternoon with my gin and tonic and Bernardine and Pandora talking about all things books. It was really fascinating, and there is so much wisdom in what Bernardine has to say. And I'm just on my way back to the hotel. I can hear definitely in London because the ambulances. Whole cavalcade now. And as I'm walking back along Gower Street, just a couple of blue plaques that I've noticed which seem very pertinent to show you. So here we go, let's have a look. Here we are, and I'm just starting to walk down Gower Street, and you'll see there's a blue plaque appearing on the wall. And who is it celebrating? Well, it's celebrating, can you see that there? Dame Millicent Garrett Fawcett, a pioneer of women's suffrage who lived and died here. And rather a sort of gloomy looking black door really. And then a little bit further down the street, if you just wander down. So wandering down Gower Street, and I can see, I'm trying to do my best quick sort of walking here, quite sprightly I think. And another very interesting blue plaque, because once again it's celebrating a woman who supported literature in this case, so Lady Ottilie Morell. I don't know anything about her, I've never heard of her before, I'm going to have to go and look her up. A literary hostess and patron of the arts, and she lived here. And it's now actually the Department of Politics at Berkeley University, so there you go. So I've already discovered one famous woman who I've never come across before. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be a literary hostess? Quite fancy that as an occupation. And then there was Djinn Patrol on the Purple Line, which is written by Deepa Apara. And again, the reason I love this book, it's a detective story, but it's set in an Indian city. And I can't remember, to my shame, whether it's Mumbai or Delhi or where it is, but it's a huge Indian city. And that whole sort of, you know, I felt like I'd been to India when I'd read it. You know, you really I could sort of imagine the streets and so on, mainly because the main character Jai, he's a little boy, I think he's about 9 years old, something like that, certainly primary school age, and the story is told through his eyes, and it's just a brilliant evocation of voice. I like the fact that as a woman she's written as a young boy. I loved it's kind of a detective story. He's obsessed with detective stories, and there's a boy in his class who's disappeared, and so he takes it upon himself to solve the mystery of the disappearance. And again, it just, you know, I'm so grateful to her for transporting me. I've never been to India. I really would love to go, and I think thanks to novelists like this, you know, it was one of those books where I was really able to travel. So yeah, that has really stuck with me. And it's you know, it's told with humour and generosity, and yet, you know, the characters in the story are living in the most appalling poverty. Yeah, thoroughly recommend, and really did stay with me. Oh no, I've got to walk past the British Museum again. This is like some kind of joke. I don't know how I'm going to cope. Can you see? Oh, don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. Please don't make me do it. I really want to go inside, but maybe, you never know. Simon might let me go in there tomorrow if I'm good. I'll have to behave myself tonight though. Just waiting for a certain somebody. Can't imagine who it might be. Unfortunately, I've just had to have a little something to keep me occupied while I wait. I have got a book, but you know. Really not sure how long it should take him to get from the station. I'm going to have to order another cocktail if he doesn't hurry up. Never mind. Here he comes. Here he comes, and he enters the hotel. And now the boot is firmly on the other foot. Here's the happy traveller look. Now from this year's long list, I wanted to mention this One Sky Day because I was devastated that this novel was not on the shortlist, and in actual fact this would have been a contender for me to win the prize. And I feel really strongly about this because I think Leone Ross has written, again, a very generous, warm, humorous. I mean, there are a couple of scenes in this that made me literally cry with laughter. It's a story about this island called Popicho, and it focuses on this kind of a sort of civic role of this, which is called the Makainas, and the Makainas's job is to create beautiful food for the citizens. So every citizen has the opportunity at some point in their lifetime to eat the food that the Makainas has cooked. And the Makainas is a man who has, again, I'm trying to remember his name, I think it's Xavier, and he has lost his wife, and he keeps expecting her ghost to appear, and it doesn't appear, and it doesn't appear, and it doesn't appear, and he can't move on. It's a year, I think, at least after her death, and he just can't move on because her ghost is still there. And the novel explores their relationship, but also it's one of the most sensory novels that I've ever read because of the descriptions of the food and the descriptions of the island. But the other thing that I loved, and the relationships, there's a fantastic relationship between, I think it's Xavier, I hope I've got that right, and his brother, which I really enjoyed, and there's a kind of bit of a twist in that as well towards the end. But also, for me, the most sensational thing about this book was the way that it talks about female genitalia in a way that I've never read before. And I think, again, I think back to that, the child, you know, growing up in rural Derbyshire in the 1960s and 70s. This book kind of normalizes all of that. It discusses vulvas and vaginas and all those sorts of things, but it does it in a way that is affectionate. And I felt so strongly that this book, any woman or man reading this, it just would completely perhaps reinstate their attitude or reform their attitude towards female anatomy. And I just love Leone Ross for writing this. Thank you. I have passed it on to my daughter. She hasn't yet read it, but I'm hoping that at some point she will. And I think this is the sort of book that every young woman and young boy should read. So there we go. So we're outside the London Review of Books now. I can't get rid of this stalker behind me. We've done so much book shopping, it's been brilliant, but I've got a bit overwhelmed, so we had to come outside and get something to eat and drink. But yeah, he's pretending that he's on the phone. I think he probably is. Anyway, we're having a lovely time and getting more and more excited because it's the party in a few hours. Award ceremony in a few hours, and yeah, we're on a sort of countdown. He's waving in the background, attention-seeking behaviour. Anyway, I'll catch you later.
Oh,
are you enjoying your trip, Simon?
No.
Well, that's not very kind.
Oh, have a very nice time. We've been shopping for books.
Look at me when you're talking to me, please.
I was trying to find my book bag because whilst we're in London Review of Books, I've also booked some foils. And what you don't know is that two of them are for you.
Wow. Oh, that's nice. The gift that keeps on giving. I must have done something good at some point.
Either that or I'm doing a very good job of PR on camera.
That's possible. That is entirely
not
possible.
At all. But I am very much enjoying my London Review of Books orange marmalade and almond cake.
Yeah, it is delicious, I cannot deny. It's hiding in the box. I don't think there's any left, is there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Got some hibiscus cocktail with no alcohol in it.
Very nice too. He's not letting me drink anything today.
Not yet.
I'm banned.
Drank too much yesterday. Now, this is quite a lot of content of me and I haven't signed anything.
Yeah, but you're my son.
My agent will be having words.
I'll finish off by just mentioning last year's winner because, again, you know, I think I might eventually have got round to reading Susanna Clarke, who wrote Piranesi, but I'm not sure whether I would. Maybe the picture of the faun and the reference to Pompeii that's very obvious on the front of this book would have brought me to it. I kind of hope it would, but I just don't know. And I championed this book last year because I just think it's so clever. It's very, very original. The writing is outstanding. And the character who narrates, you just never think you're going to get to grips with him. You never think, you know, that you're going to cope. There's something really irritating and nitpicky, and his attention to detail is just a little bit creepy. No, creepy's not fair. Irritating, I suppose. And you read the first page and you think, I'm never going to... And she hooks you in. And the way it explores, I mean, there are all these... It's about this man, and he's kind of trapped in this huge other place. And it's this amazing sort of building, which is it's a building, but it's also a whole world, which is like a series of rooms, and the sea keeps washing in and washing out, and oh my God, the setting is just stunning. But it's an exploration of the mind, really, and how there are so many other different spaces that the mind can operate. It has a lot to say about mental health. It has a lot to say about how we allow ourselves or not to be manipulated by other people. And one of the most memorable moments of my life to date was when I was able to interview Susanna Clarke after the announcement that she'd won. And she is such a wonderful, wise, thoughtful person, and so humble. And again, you know, the Women's Prize for me personally has given me the opportunity to meet a lot of these very fantastic women. It strikes me that women writers are wonderful people, and that's not to say that male writers aren't. That's not what I'm saying. But I've just had this window into this world where, you know, as I say, I've managed to encounter some of these women, and they are unfailingly warm, interesting, committed, dedicated people. So thank you, Women's Prize. I really, really hope that you continue for many, many years. Obviously, this week we've had the news about the demise of the Costa, which, you know, is pretty shocking, because I think I'm right in saying that it's the only exclusively British prize, book prize. So, you know, I it's interesting times, isn't it? But yeah, please do support the Women's Prize. It's an amazing concept, really, and an amazing force for good. Okay, well, there I am. I'm going to be quiet now, and I'll be heading off down to London on Tuesday to make the most of the season. Take care, everybody. Bye. Well, it's the morning after the night before. I'm absolutely delighted about Susanna Clarke's win with Piranesi. I think that was a very, very worthy choice for lots and lots of reasons. It's original, it stays with you, the setting is amazing, it takes us into another world, it deals with mental health. It's just a fabulous, fabulous novel. But I think, you know, we mustn't forget the 5 other shortlisted writers whose work is also absolutely stunning. Anyway, I'm feeling a little bit, what's the word? Just slightly sort of, you know. But we'll soon be gearing up for the next one. We'll start reading, I think, somewhere in April. It isn't that long away. Plenty of books to read in between. And off to get on my train in a minute. But I'm going to be in good company because I've got Sayaka Murata's Earthlings. It's a proof copy. I feel really guilty. I was sent this a long time ago, but I've only just got round to reading it. I've already started it. I'm really enjoying it. So that's going to keep me company. She's going to keep me company on the train home.